My name is Davita E. Arnold. You can call me V, and I am thrilled to be here as Communication Director for AAF. But more than that, I want to make sure that you all enjoy what's happening on day 2 of Netroots 2020, which means that it's time for us to get tucked in by none other than Tucker Carlson.
Maybe Tucker is stuck in some.
Maybe Tucker has tucked himself in.
Could be.
Tucker, have you tucked yourself in?
Tucker, where are you? Here comes Tucker.
For what could very well be the most important job on earth, Biden has decided to hire exclusively on the basis of qualities that are both immutable and completely irrelevant: race and gender. And that's it. But wait a second, you ask. Isn't that insulting? Isn't it wrong? Isn't it probably illegal? Yes, it is all three of those things.
Really?
Yeah, the wisdom.
Did you guys know that hiring someone on the basis of race and gender was A, their useless qualities, and B, was illegal?
I was unaware, but thank you, Tucker, for giving me information I can't use.
Tucker, I learned so much from Tucker that they don't teach in schools.
Luckily. So many things, so many edifications. And
so many things.
So many things.
Yeah, so welcome to day 2 of Netroots Nation. I'm Liz Winstead, host Moji and Marie, and Davita E. Arnold, who we wanted to introduce y'all to. And one of the reasons Davita's not on our panel is because Davita started her job on Monday. And so she's like, can I just have a minute before I'm just like on panels and in it? And I was like, 1 minute. You get 1 minute.
She's like 30 seconds. She said like 30 seconds.
But we are
gathered myself so quickly, my edges got snapped. See that?
Well, here's the deal. I'm going to give you a minute to go fix those edges. We're just so thrilled to have you. And we're so thrilled to be here doing our fantastic day 2 of Netroots Nation. We have a power show that we're going to get to. We're going to hit some quick hits. And then we have 3 incredible guests who are coming up who are going to talk. We're going to talk about the Hyde Amendment, the Helms Amendment. If those things are foreign to you, turn in your progressive card, because what are you doing? You should know. But no shame. We'll do a deep dive on that with experts who work on repealing the Hyde Amendment and what that means, and how we all have to be super proactive in making sure that when we give access to abortion for all, that means everybody's going to be able to have access to abortion. So that's pretty cool. But I think, Moji, Marie, good morning. How are your days going before we kick off?
Good morning. It's really early to be on camera, but I'm up for it. Today, unlike yesterday, I have coffee, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, today's going great. I don't think we're going to have a horrific thunderstorm or lightning, so fingers crossed.
I'm in Minnesota, and I think we are, so that'll be fun. For those of you who do not know these illustrious folks, we are the 3-headed hydra that make up the podcast, The Feminist Sleeper Cell, also known as Whores in This House, whatever you want to call our podcast at this point. And we're so excited to be doing this morning dump at Netroots Nation. I have done this since, I think, 2008 with a variety of people, and I'm so glad to have a team that I can actually use this time to talk about the issues of the day, and then also talk about why abortion matters as we navigate the world we live in, and why it should matter to all y'all. So we have some super good stories that are bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's rarely like, here's some great news in abortion rights and justice.
Yeah, they're literally always bad, Liz. Like, never. Like once every 2 months will be like, and good news, and that lasts for like 5 seconds.
I know, it is so it's just horrific. But there is just news that is incredibly massive for people's civil liberties when it comes to talking about abortion, and we just never see them anywhere. And case in point, on this particular broadcast. The state of Arkansas is dealing with some massive fuckery it was a series of laws that were passed in an omnibus bill that were so egregious that courts were like, we're going to put a stay on it. And then larger courts were like, nope, we're going to enact these laws on like August 28th, I think. And so, Marie, I want to have you give a little bit of a rundown and deep dive as to what these laws are that have passed in Arkansas.
Well, they're disgusting. There's four big ways that they're being broken out right now, which is especially just horrific. So the first one being that doctors in Arkansas beginning August 28th are going to be prohibited from doing dilation and evacuation abortions, that procedure. And just to mention to folks, there's three providers that are utilized in Arkansas, and only one, I believe, goes past 10 weeks. So that's already the climate that we have in Arkansas. So now they're not going to be able to do dilation and evacuation procedures, which is and we're going to hear from a great provider later on, but this is a safe procedure, incredibly safe, medically tested, utilized by independent clinics, by hospitals across the country, standard method of termination if you're in your second trimester. And if a doctor violates that, they can face up to 6 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. One of the other laws that's going to be put in place, which I particularly find disgusting, is that if a minor, someone under age 17, contacts a clinic, comes to a doctor to seek abortion care, that doctor has to notify law enforcement. So if you are in a toxic household, a toxic relationship, if you're undocumented, if there's anything about your personal self that, hey, I don't want to be sent to the cops, I'm already pregnant, I'm trying to figure this out, guess what? The physician you're seeking is now obligated to do that for you.
Well, also, I just want to also say too. Oh, go ahead, Moji.
No, I was just saying that sounds like a HIPAA violation. Like that doesn't even sound vaguely legal.
Right. And also, if you are just a minor living in a household who's sexually active and needs an abortion, that was my first abortion. Was that I couldn't go to my Catholic parents, and to for whatever reason you would like an abortion for your own autonomy, if you're of reproductive age, nobody should be calling the cops on you. Like, that is insane.
No, it's disgusting. And we had a guest on, Diana Parker, yesterday from Midwest Access Coalition, Midwest Serving Practical Support Fund. Folks come up from the South. So like personally, I'm worried now thinking like, okay, states that are a little better don't have trap laws, like not even trap laws, like full bore laws that they're just putting on the books here. Like what is that going to mean? So you're going to be a minor and you're going to have to leave Arkansas to try to get an abortion. You're going to navigate all these things while like you're trying to attend school remotely. So that's one of the second really problematic pieces of this.
And Marie, before you continue with the three, I just want to give a geographic sort of framing of what happens in Arkansas, right? Like Arkansas is there. All of the states that surround Arkansas have equally hideous laws. Some states, one clinic. And so somebody trying to find access to abortion in an easier way has to travel a profound distance to be able to access that care. And then you add this law that you were just talking about minors, even trying to leave a state, it's really hard if you are an underage person. It's just unbelievable.
And
that's not even the worst. Marie, keep going.
So they are going to require physicians to look into your pregnancy-related medical records, and that's vague enough that it makes me wonder. Oh, are these physicians going to look at prior, like all these, like what does that even mean? But anyway, the point of that is to determine that the individual who's pregnant, that their desire to terminate isn't based on or influenced by sex selection, by gender selection. So
is that even a thing in America? Is that even a thing?
I mean,
not that I'm aware, but also it's your decision to terminate. It is your decision to terminate, full stop. And if you've seen an ultrasound, if you know information, if you're waiting to get genetic testing done and the gender of the fetus is disclosed to you, like why on earth should that be used against you? Like it is your decision, full stop. The Supreme Court has said so. We know it is so. And then the fourth law, which again, involving parties it should not, would force providers to involve family members of the patient and those family members get to decide how, or get to have input on how fetal tissue is disposed of.
Again, these things just sound like really invasive.
Well, also, yeah, I mean, and that's, the fetal tissue disposal is, it's a not sexy thing to talk about, but it's a thing that is so important when thinking about all of the ways that politicians are trying to close clinics down. If you cannot dispose of medical waste, you can't have a clinic, right? And so that part is really problematic. The other part of this Arkansas law is it allows for the person who gave the sperm to created the pregnancy, or any interested party can intervene on behalf of the fetus.
So that's your parents, your pastor, your neighbor.
Yeah,
Yes.
your one night stand, your abusive partner that's gone out of, like, anyone, your currently abusive partner.
The condom that broke?
Yeah.
If a condom could talk, the condom could be like, look, bitch, I did not, I want my stuff back.
I did it on purpose.
I'm always amazed at inseminator rights, because it's kind of like, possession is 9/10 of the law. It should be 100% of the law in this case. Also, you dump your shit on my lawn. It's my lawn. I get to keep it and do with I wish.
Exactly.
With I will. And sorry, but that is just how I feel. Don't ejaculate inside of me if you don't want me to have it, and do with it what I want to. So no. So it's going to be going into play.
Right. Did we mention it's starting on August 28th? Because that's just around the corner.
Yes.
Just around the corner.
That's before schools opened in New York.
Yes, and the ACLU is intervening. They've been intervening the whole time in this case. The ACLU of Arkansas, clinics are suing on behalf, hoping that this is going to go to higher court. But then you look at what's happened to our court system with Trump appointees. And, do we have any sanity left in lower courts with which to make decisions that all of this is blatantly unconstitutional? Literally 3 out of the 5 pieces of this legislation, Marie, that you explained to us were giving other people power over your body.
Exactly.
Right? And so it is, and it just doesn't make it in the news. And I want to even say, because there's so much going on, there isn't any abortion coverage and we never hear it because of everything else. No, in dead news weeks, before COVID, before Trump was president, before anything, when these laws started coming down the pike fast and furious in 2010, Barack Obama was our president. This wasn't on the news either. It was barely on the news, right? And I think so much of what's important as we talk about, and the guests that we're having on throughout the course of this week, we really want people to really connect with the fact that we cannot be living in a world where the only time that we care and fight and participate in securing and expanding access for abortion and birth control is legislatively. We have to be on the ground, changing hearts and minds, working to help the providers, working to help empower people to self-manage their healthcare, doing all of that all the time. And so, part of why we do this and why I'm so excited to talk to folks at Netroots is we have a group of people who are progressives who gather, a lot of times who are identify as pro-choice, but where does your activism lie? And why should you be proactive with us as we talk about the greater scope of justice for everybody? And that is one of those things where we founded this organization so we could be on the ground working and connecting with clinics and people. And I've been to over 130 clinics. We facilitated hundreds of clinics through our work and worked with helping empower the activists on the ground to help them grow their bases. And it's really important to be a presence and a face and a person who is in this and declaring and talking about and normalizing abortion. So I just wanted to give that lecture before we move on to our other story, which I was really excited to uncover. One of the things that we love to do here is figure out when there is a big, massive person who is influencing policy in the United States in a terrible way. I don't care what the policy is. Not far behind or not in their past is some shitty anti-abortion history. So our friend, the Postmaster General, who is trying to literally destroy our rights, I feel like, okay, that guy's garbage. A, lives in North Carolina. B, fundraiser for every Republican cause I don't believe in. C, what's your background? Oh, turns out his wife was the head of the Department of Health and Human Services in the state of North Carolina under Pat McCrory, who was a reprehensible governor and was a governor who set this path of North Carolina becoming a really messed up state. In fact, I cannot recommend Ari Berman's book enough on the state of North Carolina and what they did. But all of that abortion laws that happened under Pat McCrory, DeLove's wife was the head of Health and Human Services and tried to get a very extremist into the Health and Human Services, didn't get passed, but did get somebody who was helping craft anti-abortion legislation who comes from the world of fake clinics.
Yeah, she was a mess. And also I think that it's what she did as the Department of Health and Human Services secretary is similar to what's happening with the post office right now, right? You put people in who don't believe in the organizations that they're supposed to run and who craft it based on whatever their specific ideology is. So she was a doctor from Poland who married DeJoy. And it seems like someone was just like, oh, you're a doctor. It seems like McCrory was like, you're a doctor. Why don't you head this department? And she was very active in Republican fundraising. And I think at some point she was actually George W. Bush's ambassador to Estonia.
Yes, and now she's the ambassador, I believe, to Canada from Trump.
Okay, look at this.
I know. I'm sure Canada's not having any of her, but yeah.
Failing upwards. So she did all kinds of crazy stuff. She overpaid favored staff members, generally people who were like political cronies. She brought politically connected people in who were, again, unfamiliar and disdainful of the agencies she wanted to run. And she tried to bring Diana Lightfoot, who was an anti-abortion activist, and she wanted her to come in as head of the child development. But she ended up having to not take the position because she had tweeted all of these anti-pre-K things. And it's like, why are you hiring someone who has said they don't believe in pre-K to oversee pre-K? So anyway, that's
pre-K. Like,
what's wrong with pre-K? So that was
you're gonna die on pre-K.
She also came up with this fakakta idea when she was trying to reform Medicaid on a state level. And it was one of those things that rich people say to poor people all the time. And basically the premise of their Medicaid reform was, we're going to keep reimbursements at their shitty ass rates, but we'll split the costs with for-profit companies. And it's like, if you don't have any money, but you have to split the cost, that is not a benefit for the people that don't have any money.
Yeah, for anyone. And then they're like, oh, why is this insolvent? Oh, because you're giving the money away to people who don't need it. And
because I have to pay for half of a thing that I can't afford. Why aren't the rich people paying for all of it or 90% of it and I'll pay 10? Like, what are you even talking about?
It makes no
sense. It was just, there's math and then there's rich people math. And I feel like rich people math is not the best math.
It's very 1 for you, 3 for me.
All the time. And just pretending that I'm going to give you some.
Yes.
And I feel like that's kind of maybe was her healthcare plan. It's like, here's what we'll do. It'll be like trickle down economics for healthcare. So we'll give rich people all the healthcare. And then if they have some leftover insulin, maybe we'll team them up with a poor person and then give them like any leftover. I've got a couple of vials of insulin. Do you need that? I'll give you that. Like, that's what it feels like their plan is to me. Oh my gosh. It is just so...
like, oh my God, fortunately she's gone. And now things can go back to, shitty normal, which is better than shitty her time.
I know, it's so true. And I think, like, you know, in the ways that we look at healthcare and we talk about healthcare, it's like how people are installed into larger healthcare systems. We know that the Department of Health and Human Services, when we were at Netroots last year, Moji and I and one of our guests did a massive, that's coming up next, did a massive panel on how much anti-abortion influence is happening in the Department of Health and Human Services. And we identified 50 people who had high-level jobs whose only experience was coming from the movement to end abortion access. And so I think that's a really good jumping off point to bring on our guests who are going to be able, we're going to talk about, you know, we have one of the biggest hurdles to access to abortion in our nation is the Hyde Amendment, and internationally the Helms Amendment, and we don't talk about it enough. And I think that our progressive peopletrin, there's sister-trin, brother-trin, peopletrin. It's a word I made up. It sounds kind of weird. It sounds like an action movie, but we'll do it. To talk about what the Hyde and Helms Amendment is, we have just incredible experts. And Marie Moji, I'm going to let you do the honors of introducing our fabulous panel.
Are so excited to be joined by these three folks. Thank you so much. Well, we got a great setup of three. I'm going to start with Renee Bracy Sherman. Renee is a reproductive justice advocate. You may have seen her as the individual introducing everybody at CRR, Center for Reproductive Rights rally, opening for the most recent Supreme Court decision. She is also the executive director of We Testify, which is an RJ nonprofit that's dedicated to the leadership and representation of people who've had abortions and amplifying abortion storytelling to shift the way the media talks about it, and particularly centering populations of color, Indigenous, Black communities, queer communities, minors. Thank you, Renee, for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We also are joined by Morgan Hopkins. Morgan Hopkins is a national field manager at All Above All. All of All is a reproductive justice nonprofit that unites organizations and individuals to build support for lifting bans that deny abortion coverage. This includes the Hyde Amendment in this country, but also individual bans state by state that keep abortion coverage from reaching all the people who need it. Thank you for being here, Morgan.
Yay! And last but not least, Jen Moore Conrow, who you may, if you came to our panels last year, Jen was incredible on the panel. And Jen, we did an abortion on a watermelon live because you normally would do an early abortion demonstration with a papaya, but papayas were recalled because there was some tainted papaya shit going on that nobody knew. So we had a watermelon, showed people how easy, safe, and really not very invasive early abortion can be. And boy, did the right wing have a field day. They had a field day. But it was so great to be able to do that. And Jen, we're so glad to have you back. Jen was an abortion provider at both Planned Parenthood and Indy clinics in the Philly area for over 15 years, and is now a consultant for abortion providers and reproductive rights advocates. And we're so glad that you are here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I think before we jump in about this presidential situation we have with Biden and Kamala, let's start with you, Morgan, to talk, just give a little brief history of the Hyde Amendment for our folks so they can understand what it is. And then maybe all of you can weigh in just on the ramifications of what it has done to abortion access throughout it since it's been in play.
Sure, it's my favorite topic. I also will say, just for legal reasons, that I am actually here on behalf of our Action Fund, which is why we can talk about the election. And I am now actually as of recently, our Director of Political Strategies. So had a little bit of a glow up.
All right.
Hey.
Just wanted to shout that out. Yes, but Hyde Amendment, I could talk about it all day. For people who don't know, it is quite literally an amendment that is attached to the federal budget every year. So every single year, Congress has to come up with where all the money's going to go. And in 1976, this guy named Henry Hyde from Renee's home state, sorry, Renee, of Illinois, decided that he was going to attach this amendment to the budget because he knew he could no longer restrict abortion, because in 1973, Roe versus Wade legalized abortion in this country. And so 3 years later, he realized the best way to take away access to abortion was to stop people enrolled in Medicaid from being able to access it with their insurance coverage. So he put this amendment on the budget that says no federal dollars can go towards abortion care. And it means that if you are enrolled in Medicaid for your health insurance, it will not cover abortion services. It has since extended itself into many other programs. So if you serve in the military, if you are a federal employee, so if you work for the federal government, if you are in the Peace Corps, if you live on a reservation and your health insurance comes from the Indian Health Services, none of those insurance programs will cover an abortion. And so we, all above all, our campaign started 7 years ago, but really 10 years ago, which Liz, you just referenced the 2010 as this like really important moment when the state restrictions started happening. That is also when the negotiations around the Affordable Care Act were happening and when the Hyde Amendment language stayed in that bill. So there was a negotiation around, are we going to get no copay birth control? Is the Hyde Amendment going to be in this bill? What's going to happen? And we got the no copay birth control, which is great, very important. And the Affordable Care Act still has the preventative language that doesn't allow those insurance programs to cover abortion care. And so that was the moment that women of color leaders in the reproductive health rights and justice movements came together and created this newest iteration of the movement to end the Hyde Amendment. It is standing on the shoulders of decades of work from women of color who have been trying to undo this for almost 45 years at this point. So that's my very top line overview. And I'll let our folks talk about what they see as the impact, of course.
Yeah, Renee, you want to jump in on impact? I know as somebody who is just providing incredible leadership on storytelling and people bringing their abortion stories to the forefront, which is an incredibly important and powerful, and I would say almost most effective way of being able to talk about these impacts. Tell me a little bit about folks that you've worked with who have had experiences with these burdens.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And also for legal purposes, I'm here representing myself. You can know where I work, but you know, I am not trying to get in trouble with the government either. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that it means that people have to work harder and try to find money to get their abortions. The Hyde Amendment creates yet another struggle because Henry Hyde knew he could control women of color, Black folks, communities of color across this country because they needed health insurance through Medicaid. And so it's really a vicious racist policy. There's so much research out there that it does disproportionately impact people of color. That doesn't mean that people of color then don't still get their abortions. It just becomes another struggle. Instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to go to the doctor that I normally go to, my gynecologist, and use my health insurance, it means, okay, great, now I have to figure out how to save up $500, $1,000, when we know that the minimum wage hasn't been raised in how long? It's nowhere near a thriving wage. The majority of people who have abortions are people of color, which we know are underpaid in this country and have less access to health insurance and health care. And the majority of people who have abortions are already parenting. So they're trying to figure out, actually, how do I keep paying rent and put food on the table for my kids and make sure they have all the things that they need to thrive and get this healthcare that I need so I can continue to focus on them. It's an all around fucked up situation, and they know that. And that was the point.
Yeah.
As Adam Sarah says, like the cruelty is the point.
The cruelty is the point.
And so they're going to continue to do that. And I think it ties into the Arkansas law, right? The cruelty there is the point. They know this is a moment that we are having a huge national conversation on the role of police and the role of police in Black and brown people's lives, and that interactions with the police means that we can die, right? And they're like, cool, go ahead, let's put more young people in front of the police to make sure that they really thought about this abortion appointment. They're just being tattletales. I've been reading Faye Waddleton's memoir, which I have been it's so good. She was the former president of Planned Parenthood. She was the president for 14 years, from 1978 to 1992. She was the first woman to run the organization outside of Margaret Sanger, and the first Black woman. And it was right after criminalization. And the way she talks about parental notification laws, she doesn't call them that. She calls them squeal laws. Because that's what they're doing. They're making you squeal on like people who need abortions and young people. Or also she kind of talks about them being like tattletelling. And that's really what this is like they're squealing on you for needing an abortion and saying, here's, this person needs it and this is why and all of that. And I think all of these policies, the point is the dehumanization of Black and brown folks who need abortions. And just to remind us that like access to abortion might be settled under the right to privacy, but you actually don't get that because you are not seen as a full citizen in this country.
And Jen, I wanted to go to you. It's a good jumping off point. As somebody who has been in abortion provision for a long time, when people come to you with a myriad of circumstances to get their abortions, finances being super hard, walk through what that's like to have to navigate. And, you just are so shamed oftentimes the way abortion is set up, how you pay. Sometimes when you go to a clinic, there's a glass thing between you, you have to pay in cash. Like all of these things that happen for people. Talk to me about how, if we remove Hyde as a giant hurdle, what that feels like for somebody who can walk in and have their abortion with dignity and without question.
It's a game changer. And I've run clinics in states that function very differently. So one piece of how the Hyde Amendment functions like on the ground is states can choose to use their funds to cover abortion care. So I've run a clinic in a state that chose to do that. In New Jersey, people who have Medicaid can use their Medicaid to access abortion care easily. And I've also worked in a state where that is not true, in Pennsylvania. And running clinics in those two settings is extremely different in how that financial piece has an impact on people's ability to access care and how they approach their healthcare because of it. Like being able to just use your insurance to go to, unfortunately, still maybe not the doctor that you have an established relationship with, because the way abortion care is set up in this country and regulated, that unfortunately doesn't happen in a lot of spaces. But still, you can just walk in, make a phone call to make an appointment and know your procedure is going to be covered. And there are no restrictions. You just come in, get what you need from us. Versus being in a state where every piece of accessing abortion care is a struggle. Typically, the states that don't allow Medicaid to cover abortion care also have multiple restrictions on access to care. So it's not even just I have to hustle to find money to pay for a procedure that should be covered by my insurance. It's also, and I have to do a mandatory counseling session where I'm literally talked down to, and the physician or clinician that I'm talking to has to read a script that maybe doesn't even remotely apply to my situation, and creates a barrier in that provider-patient relationship. And then you have to wait a day, and all of the pieces of your childcare, work, life puzzles to make multiple appointments to access care. So it just creates, as Renee said, another hurdle for people to have to navigate to get just basic healthcare that they need. So removing the Hyde Amendment for patients, I mean, would be an absolute game changer, and full stop is necessary for people to be able to access care with dignity, along with repealing every fucking trap law and access to care law. Like, folks just need healthcare. And as providers, we shouldn't be involved in, like, we should not be gatekeepers of care in any way. And that's what these laws require. They require us to be gatekeepers of care, and that's really fucked up.
Can I just add one other thing? I didn't know that my abortion would have been impacted by the Hyde Amendment until later. So my dad was a nurse at a university hospital in Illinois. And so that makes him a state employee. And so then that, at the time, Illinois did not allow for abortions to be covered for state employees. It does now. I ended up not using my insurance because I didn't want my parents to know that that I was going to have an abortion. So it didn't impact me mindset in that way, because I didn't get denied the insurance in that way. But what did was when they told me the cost, because I didn't want to use my insurance, and so I'd have to pay out of pocket because I was afraid my parents were going to find out I wanted to tell them, but not right then. And I didn't want the insurance company to tell them. That level of panic, I cannot tell you how much that hurt. I don't talk about it very much because it hurts. Then, the idea of saying, okay, well, they were like, you can have sedation and that's going to cost $100 more. Trying to do that mental calculation of, I was working at Victoria's Secret at the time. And I literally had to sit there and think, how many hours more do I have to work in order to pay for this sedation to get it? And the reason I got pregnant was because I couldn't afford my birth control, the copay to it. So like all of this cost made it that I got pregnant. That was the issue, right? Inability to pay is the reason. And so we really need to think about what that feeling of pain that cost causes somebody when they are getting ready to get that abortion.
Yeah.
I thank you, Renee, for always sharing your story, and especially with Illinois and the bill that was passed there a couple of years ago, which got rid of that public employees ban. But I really want to put a finer point on, I think, what everyone has touched on, given the context that we find ourselves in. I think even for us doing this work every day, it can sometimes feel like, okay, but we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are being evicted, and like, why would anyone care about this? But I think we are living through the exacerbation of all of those systems that Renee just talked about, all of those barriers. It's now being talked about nationally, which is important, but people who are losing their jobs and their health insurance that came with that job are now likely to be enrolling in Medicaid. So we are living through a real-time expansion of who's being impacted by the Hyde Amendment. And it's about that. And it's also about, why aren't people making a living wage to begin with, right? Why is $600 a week in unemployment insurance more than what most people make in their jobs? And so as we start talking about the election, we're pushing, of course, for a concrete plan for how the Biden-Harris administration would end the Hyde Amendment. And we want a commitment to raise the federal minimum wage and eliminate the tipped wage, because those communities and constituencies that we are working with that are impacted by all of those are the same. And this idea that like, oh, the workers that we have to help recover from this economic crisis, the idea that they're different from people who are seeking abortion care is just inaccurate. And so we've partnered with economic justice groups to really push those priorities together so that abortion policy isn't being siphoned off over here as we talk about economic justice and recovery. So I just wanted to sort of like situate us in this moment that we're in.
Emoji?
Yes, sorry. Well, okay, so these are huge obstacles. And obviously repealing Hyde is not just about pro-choice versus anti-choice. A lot of elected officials vote for reinstating it every year. So I don't know, what obstacles are we having to been facing to repeal, not only from anti-abortion politicians, but from supporters of abortion rights?
Yes, that is a great point. And it's something that I usually start off with and forgot, but it's important to note that when people talk about, if you like, even saying repealing the Hyde Amendment is almost a bit of a misnomer because it's not a law. It's not something that's been passed and signed by anyone into law. It is attached to the budget every single year and has been for now almost 44 years. So this is something that all of our legislators have voted on every single year. And so that's part of the reason it's so important to keep contacting your legislator to say that you don't want it to exist and that you want them to pass the proactive bill in Congress that would undo the Hyde Amendment. But yeah, I think it's a really good point that this is something that even 5 years ago, Democrats in Congress did not want to talk about, did not want to hear about it. It was considered politically untouchable, basically. And it was the quote unquote law of the land, which is not true. And I think the shift that we've seen both from our Congress people, and we've really seen women of color in Congress become the champions of this issue and are like, our fiercest, best spokespeople about this because they can really talk about it in that sort of intersectional way that's so important. So seeing that happen, and then also seeing the shift in 2016 and 2020, having the Democratic candidates for president across the board committing to ending the Hyde Amendment really shows how much the political environment around this issue has shifted. And that is a result of the work of all of our people in our movement and also all of our supporters in talking about this nonstop for, 7+ years at this point. But it really shows like the strength of the movement, and we're getting closer and closer each time.
And I wanted and that's a great pivot to talking about Biden-Harris, right? Where Joe Biden had been a staunch supporter of the Hyde Amendment, and Kamala Harris held him to that in a debate. But one thing that I wanted to point out is when Joe Biden had said that he's changed his mind, the way he phrased it was, when I'm elected, I want to codify Roe v. Wade with the carve out for Casey. For those of you that don't know what that means, that is something that all of us as activists need to push back on, because Planned Parenthood v. Casey was the 1992 Supreme Court ruling that gave states the ability to put abortion restrictions with a quote undue burden. And they didn't ever define what an undue burden was, so which is why states can drive a Mack truck through this hole and give all these laws that you are hearing that sound like, how can they possibly do that? That seems like terrible. It's like, well, since nobody's defined what an undue burden is, states can say anything and then it has to be challenged. And so I think, and I hope that as we go forward and look at this Biden candidacy, and that we as activists say, you have to, Roe v. Wade means nothing with Casey in place. People are not getting access to care. States are creating laws like cowboys, and it's a problem. And so I just would love to get all y'all's thoughts on what that means and how we hold Biden-Harris accountable to make sure that codifying Roe v. Wade that America doesn't hear that and think, okay, good, then I can stop thinking about it, right? That seems great. I can take abortion off my plate. Renee, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, well, I think it means that we actually need to have a real conversation and redefine what is pro-choice. I'm pro-choice, but is not pro-choice.
Right.
Plain and simple. I'm pro-choice, but it's too late. I'm pro-choice, but you've had too many. I'm pro-choice, I'm pro-choice is the end of it. You're either pro-choice and you believe that you and no politician gets to stand in the way of somebody's decision, or you don't. Because anything less than that is that you support criminalization. Because the reality is that the way our laws in this country are set up means that anyone who doesn't follow the very narrow path is subject to criminalization. So the fact that abortion is in this legal framework to begin with is actually quite problematic, and it should just be regulated like every other medical procedure. We are at this point that it is, and we need to fix that. And that means that we need to challenge our friends. That means we need to challenge them on the stigmatizing language they use. Speaker Pelosi has said she doesn't support abortion on demand. That's a right-wing talking point.
Also,
idea,
any health care that you demand, you should get.
Right. You should get it. If you need it, it's on demand, right?
That's
but
also elective surgery. I hate when they go, abortion's an elective procedure. I'm like, so is open heart surgery. Nobody is forcing procedures upon you.
Thank you. And the way she's using it is this right-wing talking point to make it seem like those of us who need abortions for whatever reasons we do, and for however many times we do, there's something wrong with us and that she will not stand with us. It also means that we need to challenge folks and our friends, because they won't step forward on abortion, on Hyde, because it's an election year. Something I learned is that the way they were able to ram the Hyde Amendment down the first time was because it was leaning into a congressional election year and everyone was afraid. Well, guess what? Abortion is a winning issue. And so we need to actually push folks to be our champions and say, no, as a politician, it is not my decision to stand in the way of someone getting an abortion, particularly poor folks and communities of color. And we need to call these laws what they are. They are racist. And if you stand with them, you're standing with white supremacy and with racism and misogyny. Do not be a handmaiden to white supremacy.
I think that is great. And I want to say, we could talk about this all day. And this is like the best panel in the world to talk about it. I am like so in love with being able, we never get to see each other. I mean, it's COVID, but I don't know. I just feel the brilliance that all of you are bringing is so great. And one of the things I wanted to say to the Netroots family, we were going to dive a little bit deeper into all the ways that we need to make sure that Hyde can be, when Hyde gets repealed, there's things that we need to do. And there's folks working in larger healthcare reform movements who need to stand with us. We need to be working together, and the folks who are working on expanding telemedicine need to work with us to get abortion medication off this scary ass list of medications like there's some kind of poison. You know, you should be able to get that through the mail. You should be able to get that at your pharmacy. You know, we need you working on that. We need to be working on the fact that if we have Medicare for all, that people working on comprehensive healthcare reform will not let abortion be carved out. And when we talk about Medicaid expansion, we want to make sure that Medicaid rates go up for everybody who needs care, so that providers and patients alike are being able to exist in and grow and expand in a financial framework that works for everybody who's doing it. So I just wanted to say, if you are at Netroots and you're somebody who's working on telemedicine, larger expansion, to talk to the folks at All Above All, to talk to Renee's organization, to talk to Abortion Access Front and all the other folks who are doing really great work on Hyde, because we need to know that in your profession of human rights and justice advocates, that you are not going to sell folks down the river who need abortion care, because without your own decision of when and if a healthy family is going to be started for you, that you don't consider that a human right and the very foundation of somebody's like destiny, then get yourself out of the game, because you're not in the real game. Like, I just want to be clear. So with that, can we just have this conversation again and again and again outside of Netroots, because I loved it so much. I want to thank my guests for coming on and laying it out so profoundly. Just really quickly, Renee and Morgan and Jen, let people know where they can find you to further these conversations. Renee, I'll start with you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter all day, every day at Bracy Sherman. I'm also on Instagram a bit at Renee Bracy Sherman and Facebook, Renee Bracy Sherman as well. But most importantly, follow the abortion storytellers of We Testify at Abortion Stories on Twitter, and We Testify on Instagram and Facebook. Mwah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Morgan.
Yeah, you can follow our Action Fund. It's at All Above All Act. I'll put it in this chat too. We actually have 2 events next week because it's the convention. So it's like, political Olympic time. It's very exciting. So we have 2 different events. We'll be talking about what we want to see from a Biden-Harris administration and the commitments we want from their campaign now. So follow us on Twitter all through next week. Same handle on Instagram. And then I'm the F word 527 if you want to follow me on Twitter. Thanks.
Nice. Jen.
You can find me on Twitter at Conrow. And if you want to connect with abortion providers who are doing this work, the best way to get, especially to indie providers, is through the Abortion Care Network, which I think is at Abortion Care on Twitter.
It is at Abortion Care on Twitter. And you know where we are, but I love finding y'all, and Abortion Care Network is amazing. Thank you for all of your work. You guys are incredible guests. Do we have any questions from our audience? And I'm wondering if we do have any questions really quickly. And if
I think we'd have to ask people to put them in the question box.
Oh, we don't. Okay. So
Yeah.
You know what? Too bad. Sorry about the questions. I'm a terrible moderator. Let's be real. So no questions, but we like to close out each of our podcasts where Moji and Marie pick a story from the news unrelated to abortion. They explain to me the story, and then I have 6 guesses to tie it to abortion. Let's see how it goes. What is the story today, friends?
So I feel like today we've gone far, and I feel confident. Marie, do you feel confident?
I do.
All right. So last month in Michigan, a bald eagle launched an attack on a drone that had been launched by the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. The eagle tore off the propeller and the drone plummeted into that lake. The person who piloted the drone searched for it for hours, but never found the drone, and the eagle seemed unharmed. So can you link, in 6 degrees or less, bald eagles to abortion?
Apparently people that work with me don't follow my Instagram.
Oh.
Because on my birthday, which was August 5th,
it was just like a week ago.
I bought myself lunch, and I treated myself to a walk around one of my favorite lakes in the Twin Cities. Upon my walk, lo and behold, what is in the tree above me but a bald eagle soaring? It is on my Insta. It is visually right there. So I tied myself to the bald eagle. I've had 3 abortions. I run an abortion rights organization. Nice try. I know you guys thought you were going to stop me, but I feel sad for you that you thought that.
Bald eagles, this is great. When have they ever had an abortion?
So funny. Well, oh my God. So I know I love that you try, and I love that I win. I'm very competitive. So I'm just saying that's a wrap for us, y'all. We have some fun stuff to talk to you about before we go. So listen up. As we talked about yesterday, we have a petition going right now because a consortium of manipulative fake clinics that are created by religious extremists to try to deter people from abortion have gotten PPP money when we know a lot of people have not. We have a petition to say they should not be getting money. They should be giving the money back. And so you can read all about that petition. It's in the comments. Also, you can come to talk to us about the petition live, because at 1 p.m. Eastern, Marie, Moji, and I are having a virtual booth session. So you can come, you can pop into our booth, you can ask us about the organization and the work we do, you can find out more, sign the petition, you can buy these cool shirts that we're all 3 wearing, and it's going to be pretty great. Also, we are doing an incredible event live on the internet, September 17th. It's a concert called Do Re Me Too. It's righteous feminists who are reclaiming sexist songs. We have Laura Jane Grace from Against Me. We have Laura Benatti. We've got Veruca Salt. We have Peppermint from RuPaul's Drag Race, Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's, and a whole list of incredible performers that we are super, super, super excited about. So if you want to find out more about that, you should follow us on social, and we're putting that announce out pretty soon. But mark your calendars for September 17th, and it's going to be on Crowdcast, which is a really great concert hosting platform. But we will be sending out an email, so sign up for our email list at aafront.org to find out information about that. And just sign up for our mailing list in general. We do really badass actions in the time of COVID where you are really making a difference to help providers, activists on the ground, and fighting legislation. And subscribe to our podcast. This is going to become audio. It is for our podcast. It's called the Feminist Sleeper Cell, where we weekly, Marie Moji and I, have a drill down on the week's news in abortion access fuckery and have great guests. So do that. And we'll be back tomorrow with the incredible journalist Robin Marty, who also runs the Yellowhammer Fund. And we're going to be talking about state legislation and how abortion extremists are really intersectional in their hatred, and how they are working to end and harm many, many people outside of the abortion sphere, LGBTQ folks, Black and brown folks, and how we should be working together to fight them and take down their power. So that's all tomorrow, but hopefully we'll see you this afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern for our virtual tabling booth session. So until tomorrow, 10 a.m., may the abortion access force be with you. Thanks, Moji. Thanks, Marie.